Hello there, everybody. Yeah, digging out to a little bit of the doo-wop. I'll tell you, if it wasn't for the doo-wop, we wouldn't have rock and roll today. So love it, love it. I hope you are a fan and a aficionado of doo-wop. It's again, fabulous, fabulous take on music. Gets you in a good mood. So, welcome everybody. So good to see everyone. Thank you for tuning in. It is a delight to see you all. And here we are on Wednesday. Yes, world going on. Hump day for some. Hey Gaia, how you doing? How's Paul? So good to see you, Stephanie and DC. Deborah Sloan, much love to you, darling. Nina, how you doing? Jackie. How are you? Nothing missing. Yeah, speaking of that, just go ahead and I'll just say it. Plant the seed of favor into our lives. We speak what we create, and we create what we speak, calling those things that be not as though they are. So favor is honest. No matter what you think, you quote it, you speak it, it'll manifest. Yeah, that's how we hang. But seriously, favor be on us all. And of course, that ever manifesting reality of nothing missing, nothing broken. So anyway, that's how we hang here. Hey, Rage Against the Machine, what's up? Good to see you, B3. Coke Queen, what's up? Good to see you as well. And shout out to Mr. Gilbert. How you doing? Hey, Lauren. Good to see you, darling. Favor is upon us. That's a fact. Uh, Stephanie Marie, good to see you. And Grace and everybody else. Fabulous day. Getting weird. So it follow up on the story out in Colorado, my former residence, out in Red Rocks. If any of you ever been, had the opportunity to go to Red Rocks, it's a fabulous place. Many, many memories there. Those who've lived in Denver even longer than I did, um, fabulous place. But anyway, so the story's coming out more about this spacecraft, mothership. All we know is that there was at least a dozen or more witnesses. These were people that were working a venue out at Red Rocks, and it was, they said, literally about 30 seconds. Because once it realized that it was being watched, it just disappeared. But this was a big one. They say they estimate it to be around 300, 350 feet in diameter, saucer shaped. And more importantly, there were at least three decks to this craft. They could clearly see light emanating out of, I guess, their windows. I don't know. Yeah. So it got me to thinking, things are really tense in the world. You have China that now seized a Taiwan fishing boat. Japan, excuse me, China now with their warships around the Philippines. You've got Russia now having nuclear subs parked in Cuba. You've got Russian warships now being parked in Venezuela. I mean, you get these type of situations and it gets a little dicey. And it's very clear that it makes you think, so what are they going to do? What if they aren't really in charge? What if there is a higher they or it or them or however you want to say it? Um, are we about to have an intervention? Uh, I don't know. I've been thinking about this, that if ET existed, and let's say that they were these higher intelligent beings, why the hell didn't they intervene in the wars of the 19th century? The 18th, hell, we can go back all the way back. No, they didn't do that. they kind of, sat along the sidelines. They bought their tickets, and, they had front row, and they got their popcorn, they got their martinis, and they definitely had the cannabis, so they're sitting back watching us because we're the only ones that fight these wars, us humans. And then I said, okay, so you got the idea of Project Bluebeam, that's where they can create holograms. Okay. Well, that's kind of like, you know, deception. And then it got me to thinking, well, the occult. And I love the subject. Although I can tell you from personal experience yesterday, there are many on the outside who just aren't quite ready for your revelation. They're not going to dig your epiphany in, how you suddenly see things because they're in a totally different mindset, reality. I don't know. And then when you talk and you bring up just the small uh minutia of a topic, I ain't gonna have it. Well, and which tells me again that we as a species are very interesting. We're insane, if you ask me. Maybe the type of weapons wouldn't affect them like yeah, okay, guy. Yeah, I get it. I can dig that. Hey, Chloe, good to see you, darling. Bonnie, hello. You think they aren't wars on other planets? It appears, Bonnie, to add to that, it appears that war is universal. I mean, we were taught it. Someone did it before we did. All my life, I grew up under the perception that, there was this spiritual war. Now, I don't know if they had B-1 bombers or if they had Pegasus or whatever, Minotaurs, I don't know. It seems like if these beings are as technologically advanced as they say they are, what a freaking war. And we've seen pictures, the Hamburg 15, what's that, 15, 17, 15, 14, somewhere right around there. The great battle, the UFO battle, the sun was blotted out because these weapons, and there were ships falling to the ground, and the humans that were exposed to the emissions of these crafts were, many of them died on the spot. They had pustules that began to form on their body. I mean, and where do we read about pustules? Oh, yeah. In that thing called you know, the Colburn Bible, the bronze books. Very apt description of a mothership. I don't think it was a planet. I think it was a mothership. Anyway, it seems like the gods have their, they dig their rides too. So, what model you got there, Yahweh? I want to let you know I've got the newest version, the X42, by the way, that is extra plush. I mean, it's so fucking fine in here. I got a quadraphonic live music system and Ultra 12K. I mean, it's just the best place to, because they all seem to have ships. Got on that tangent, didn't we? War reminds me of the immune system. Isn't that true? We got this raging battle in our bodies. I mean, there's all these other life forms on the outside that if they get on the inside of us, well, that can be the end of us. Let me tell you what happens if you get by a tick and you don't pay attention to it because you've been bit before growing up as a kid, but these ticks were infected with a bioweapon that actually was the insanity of so-called Nazi Germany scientists, they're on Plum Island, and you get bit and you don't realize it. And if you have a strong immune system, it's going to take it a little while, but it does get it. And so you have these live spirochetes in you, and they're just, and your body is fighting this thing, and there's this big freaking war. And then, meningitis sets in, and then it kicks your ass. uh, and you go for the rest of your life, you come out of this. And actually, I'm kind of appreciative of the fact because, you get out of the freaking coma and you're sitting in the hospital bed for almost a month solid. A lot of thinking. I counted the drop-in tiles, they have in hospital rooms, and they have these little patterns. I got it to where I counted the whole freaking thing. But you do a lot of thinking. So anyway, hey, F Kitty, what's up? Good to see you, Elderberry. Uh, what else is Paul Joe? Good to see you. Hello, Ann. How are you? Why can't they just have love for it? Yeah, isn't that? So I told one of these doctors my thesis that, this is the death realm. He didn't dig that message at all. Mm-mm. Not a fan. Nope. Nope. I'm sure he wrote something down in my, file, you know. He was not having any freaking part of it. None, nada, not a word. Nope, 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 nope. And don't tell a Christian there is no such thing as Lucifer. Nope, don't do that either. Nope, nope, nope. Well, they're just not going to dig what you have to say. Hello, Morgan. How are you? Uh, well, JD, how are you, my friend? Much love to you. Hello, Rick. What's up? But anyway, yeah, just don't do that. They're not. I got to tell you what, they ain't going to dig it. And you suddenly see this wall come up. It's like, the one individual didn't want to come back into the patient room. What is the occult reality of existence? Oh, well, Nina, anxious to find out, huh? Hello, Lady Ellie. What's up? So I guess we're going to get into this. I got like well over. I pulled over 100 white papers, books, articles on the occult, and I thought that this was very interesting. So this paper, which we're going to get into several papers, um, is really cool. So this is the Occult Reality of Existence, written by Kristen Rees Sondergaard, who lives in Denmark, I do believe. I like this, and it brings into a number of articles. We're going to kind of just, kind of freeform it, which is a lot of fun because the occult is that knowledge. It's the knowledge that every religion stole. That's how religions are formed. They got that knowledge from occultists. They burned down our libraries. They raided that knowledge, and it was occult knowledge. And this inner circle, they got all the books, or the ones that they saved. Makes you think, which ones were though? All right, it said the abstract of this paper is an exploration of the occult reality of existence from the perspective of a young Aryan elite, mainly residing in Denmark, the rest of Scandinavia and Germany. And again, we hear all different points of view, which helps us in formulating our point of view. The paper went on to say, we criticize modernity for neglecting the true cause and purpose of creation and for suppressing the true nature of spiritual man. We find that the age of reason and modernity is haunted by the Faustism pact of the actors involved in proliferating a rationalistic and imperialistic worldview and view of man. Rather, we seek to bring back the sense of the mystical, the occult, the supernatural, so that the good of mankind may once again taste the nectar of immortality that heaven is. Heavens is Aryan, but all ontological good people live on in the Holy Spirit in these latter days. We describe the necessity of introducing a mystical, poetic of divine creation and divine love to guide the metapolitics of the good mankind that is on the rise all over the world. So yesterday we were talking, and Trina and Jenny, we discussed that there really is this, I don't know if it's a revolution, I don't know if it's a movement, but there is something happening. And more people are questioning the narrative and breaking free of this God spell. We describe the necessity of introducing a mystical poetics of divine creation and divine love to guide the metapolitics of the good of mankind that is on the rise of the world. Furthermore, we describe how the highest principle of creation is the tantric mystical union of the Aryan man and woman, and only by acknowledging and exploring this reality can we find home. We describe the ethereal life of the Aryan race, a reality that has been suppressed for a very long time, but which nevertheless is the promised land and the true life of all good people. Now, a part of me is always going, okay, well, how are we defining good? And whose concept are we saying what is good and what is bad? It's just merely a perspective, right? Says we criticize Christianity for having the premise wrong and for degrading the woman. The truth is that the woman is the counterpart of creation on equal footing with the man. No problem with that. I happen to agree with that wholeheartedly. We hope the paper will shed new light on the theology, philosophy, and politics of the Aryan race as we are determined to continue our deculturalization of theology and science for a much better future, eventually reaching Afiniman, the upheaval of all good people for the eternal life. These are the latter days. Thank you and good luck. I don't know if that's a good or bad when they say thank you and good luck. It's like, okay. Um, Against the scientific rationalism, positivism, empiricism, and the disenchantment of the world. Modernity is often described as a disenchantment of the world. In ancient times, it was common to perceive the existence as mystical, and I think it's love of spirituality. Obviously, there's issues when you translate from one language to another, has had profound effect on the zeitgeist of modern day life. With the rise of scientific rationalism, all of existence was to be explained in the neutralist terms, that is, by physics, chemistry, and biology. This is today the prevailing epitome of science. Even in theology and in philosophy, God was perceived as dead. Very interesting. And so I want to stop right here, but the sentence finishes out, which is the case for the theological current belief in the theothantology. There's a word for you. So, God, if God is not physically alive, then how is God alive? And if God is alive in the construct of that he's a living God, then that means the veil can be pierced, can be crossed, and apparently crossed very easily. If God exists, then the question is God dead by literal meaning? How can God be alive and yet be the creator of us, according to the story, and not be dead? Is God the God of the living, or is God the God of the dead? And you can't ignore that. That's just ignorance. So what is God? How can God be both alive and dead? And then how can God have power in the death realm, but also have power in this realm? And it seems like when this God of death comes here, it brings death. It's all about death. You can't please this God. So is this the God of the living or the God of the dead? Um, It's speculated in the Gnosis, the self-emptying of God in the death of Christ. Also, Hegel, 1770 to 1831, and Natchez, 1841-1900, are famous for stating the death of God. Hegel considered the incarnation of God in Christ a negation and the death of Christ a double negation. It is our conviction that this is an all-out gloomy, and I believe, here's where I love to have Judith. I think that's Wellington, a worldview that renders life meaningless and hopeless. Even though Hegel thought that the death of Christ was more of a full revelation of God in the Holy Spirit, which he believed to be absolute consciousness. But as Arians, we have faith in both God, or more precisely, the two creators, namely the Aryan race father and mother, and, the Holy Spirit. Related to the aforementioned worldview is the common conception of existentialism. Existentialism, there we go, which also speaks about the nausea, the angst, and the alienation of modern entity. The red thread in these developments is the loss of the reality and possibility of transcendence. Paper goes on to say, as Arians, we wish to redeem this development of modern entity by once again bringing back the mystical vision and the possibility of transcendence to the good of mankind, which we find to be possible now in the age of post-modern entity. So it goes on to say, because I got several papers I want to cover in this. It gets into exactly more of what happened, that the Aryan race, and there are, I think, 7 distinct races on the planet. Remember, the God of the Bible manipulated the gene pool purposely in producing his own race. Now, this was the God that created supposedly man, and man was perfect in his form and function. But the interesting thing is that when those gods left, this other God came in. Was there a war? I don't know. But what we do know is that the God of the Old Testament, and which carries forth into the New Testament, well, that's debatable on circumcision on that aspect. But the point is, this God created his own chosen race and then put his mark on that race by bringing in circumcision. Now, if this God brought in circumcision as his mark, then that would mean that he was what? Altering what was considered perfect? Was this sacrilegious? Was this a blasphemous act? to tell humans to do this to their genitals, males particularly. Unfortunately, it covers to females as well. When did we get so fucked up in the head that we thought that this was normal? But no one questions that. That's a cult. That's probably why I do this, is that because I was stuck underneath that. And, I never questioned it. But when you start questioning it, you're going, but wait a minute. If this fucking God is so perfect, then why the hell does this God come in and basically commit a sacrilegious act? He violated the temple, the sacredness, by putting his own mark, and then further bringing racism into the knowledge of all mankind. Because that's what it is. It's racist. To say that this God purposely created for himself this race of people that he distinguished from all the rest of the races. See, that's what occultism would have brought out. The logicness of this. You're going, now I'm not demeaning any particular religion or race. I'm just simply saying from my personal experience, this is my opinion, and this is what I question. You do it in yourself. Now, the interesting thing about the Aryans, they were the whites, that there is this relationship that has been obliterated from history, from basically what most humans realized was that the Aryans and the Hindus, they traded ideas. They traded ideas on gods and the occult, magic. Yeah. And it was from that relationship that we have the modern day structure of angels, demons, Satan, God, Lucifer, Jesus. It all stems from India. Occult. So I want to continue on. I got some great books in here. This is, by the way, what is this? This is the first book of natural magic. There's 20, I have 19. I think there's 19 or 20 of these books, and they're not very large, but they're really packed with some good things. So with occultism, occult, it is closely aligned and associated with magic. In modern day society, both of these are shunned because religion has done that. Religion conditions through the initiation and the blocking of reason and thought. That's what it does. It shuts it down. That people are indoctrinated and they pick up on it. The worst thing Hollywood has ever done is that they've played into this. Oh, the occult. Well, I say, well, why do you teach on the occult? That's exactly. I said, because you know what occult means. Well, not exactly. See? That hidden truth. So what is meant by the name magic? I like this. Porphyry and Apelles, the great Plantagenet, in an oration made in the defense of magic, do witness that magic took her name and original form from Persia. Tully, in his book of divination, says that in the Persian language, a magician is nothing else but one that expounds and studies divine things. Soul Tribe, if we could pick this up and be able to quote this to any other person about what a true magician is, I mean, it would change everything. A magician is nothing else but one that expounds and studies divine things. And it is the general name of wise men in that country. St. Jerome, writing to Apollonius, says that Apollonius, Tyrannius, was a magician. It's true. As the people thought, or a philosopher, as the Pythagoreans esteemed him. Pliny says that it is received for certainty among most authors that magic was begun in Persia by the Zoroastrians, the son of Ormeniaphilius, or as more curious writers hold, by another Zoroastrians surnamed Proconophilius, who lived a little before. The first author that ever wrote of magic, Osthenes, who going with Axis, king of Persia, in war which he made against Greece, did scatter, by the way, as it were, the seeds and the first beginnings of this wonderful art, infecting the world with its whatever he came, inasmuch that the Grecians did not only greedily desire this knowledge, but they were even mad after it. So then magic is taken amongst all men for wisdom and the perfect knowledge of natural things. And those are called magicians, whom the Latins call wise men, the Greek call philosophers. Pythagoras only the first of that name. As Diogenes writes, the Indians call them Brahmins in their own tongue. But in Greek, they call them genosophicists, as much to say as, you ready for this, folk? Naked philosophers. Can we have a applause in that? I wonder where I came up. I remember when the idea hit me, and when I read this, I went, talk about freaking synchronicity. Come on. Naked philosophers bear all. I had no idea that this goes back freaking 5,000-6,000 years ago. That's what Indians called us. To much as to say, as naked philosophers. The Babylonians and Assyrians called them Chaldeans, of Chaldea, a country in Asia, actually in Sumer. The Celts in France called them Druids, Bards, and Semonites. The Egyptians called them priests, and the Kabbalists called them prophets. And so in diverse countries, magic has diverse names. But we find that the greatest part of those who were best seen into the nature of things were excellent magicians, as amongst the Persians, the Zoroastrians, and the son or Firmilius, whom we spoke of before, amongst the Romans, the Numen Polonius, the Theopan, against the Genophist, the Zagmarks, amongst the Tecrians, the Abrieses, among the Hyperboreans, Hermes amongst the Egyptians, and Buddha among the Babylonians. Besides these, Apilius reckoned up Corenidas, Damramajon, Hemismos, Apollonius, and Dardanus, all who followed Zoroastrians and the Osthenes. That just freaking far out? I mean, so proud of this group and every person that's in this and participates. I mean, we are all of this magic. We're all the same tribe. And what I love about this group particularly is that we don't categorize and cast magic or any of its modalities as either good or bad. It just is. We're going to review the Kabbalion, get and understand again on the 7 principles. But all of these studies that we've done in 10 years prove the fact that we are in fact magicians. I love it. We're prophets. We're priestess. We're philosophers. We're naked philosophers. Love it. But anyway, and you can go on to see Chapter 2, what is the nature of magic? There are 2 sorts of magic. The one is infamous and unhappy because it has to do with foul spirits and consists of incantations and wicked curiosity. And this is called sorcery. In art, which all learned and good men detest, neither is it able to yield a truth of reason or nature, but stands merely upon fancies and imaginations, such as vanished presently away and leaves nothing behind them. As Gemlicus writes in his book concerning the mysteries of the Egyptians, the other magic is natural, which all excellent wise men and women do admit and embrace, and worship with great applause. Neither is there anything more highly esteemed or better thought of by men of learning. The most noble philosophers that ever were, Pythagoras, Empiricus, Democritus, Plato, forsook their own countries and lived abroad as exiles and banished men rather than as strangers, and all to search out and to obtain this knowledge. And when they came home again, this was the science which they professed, and this they esteemed a profound mystery. They that have been most skillful in dark and hidden points of learning do call this knowledge the very highest point and the perfections of natural sciences, inasmuch that if they could find out or devise amongst all natural sciences any one thing more excellent or more wonderful than another, that they would still call them, excuse me, it's like, well, what happened on there? It's like, okay, um, sorry. They would call them by the name of magic. Others have named it the practical part of natural philosophy, which produces effects by mutual and fit application of one natural thing unto another. The Platonics, Platonus, imitating Marcium, writes in his book of sacrifice and magic, makes it to be a science, whereby inferior things are made subject to superiors, earthly and subdued to heavenly, and by certain pretty attractions. It fetches forth the properties of the whole frame of the world. Hence the Egyptians termed nature herself a magician, because she was the alluring power to draw like things by their likes. And this power, say they, consists in love. And the things that were so drawn and brought together by the affinity of nature, these, they said, were drawn by magic. But I think magic is nothing else but the survey of the whole course of nature. For while we consider heavens, the stars, the elements, how they are moved and how they are changed, by this means we find out the hidden secrets of living creatures, of plants, of metals, and of their generation and corruption. So that this whole science seems merely to depend upon the view of nature, as later we will see more at large. This does Plato seemingly to signify in his Albideas, where he said that the magic of Zopharius was nothing else, in his opinion, but the knowledge and the study of divine things, wherewithal the kings, sons of Persia, among other princely qualities, were endued, that by the example of the commonwealth of the whole world, they also might learn to govern their own commonwealth. Now, wouldn't it be something if we had leaders today, before they could become leaders, they'd have to be trained in the occult? They'd have to be completely deprogrammed and become magicians. Some are musicians, right? Anyway, got things to go, and we'll come back on this. These are really cool books, and I might just do a whole series on them. All right. So when you talk of the occult, you talk about nature. There is a cycle, and I have contended that today we are taught wrongly about death. Modernism in its totality fears death where it should actually embrace it. Because all the politics, all the religion lead to death anyway. Um, let's see. For I have heard from one of the wise that we are now dead, that the body is our sepulcher. Plato. St. Paul, the command that meant life proved death to me. Revelation 3:1. You have the name of being alive, but you are already dead. Excuse me, I put the already. You are dead. Well, now, wait a minute. That gets back to that original question I asked about 20 minutes ago. So, who is this God? And if you say that he's God of both, I challenge you on that. I'd love to have that debate because I can show you in the book of Psalms where it says this God of the Bible dies. They have a limited lifespan. All right. So let me, and as I pull this, there we go. In presenting to the public the thesis of this particular address, the speaker is overawed by a twofold realization. He is aware, first, that the interpretation of all ancient holy writ, which he here offers, will be disruptive of the established creedal religions of the Western world. You know, I live in a place in part of the country where if they had the opportunity, they would probably hang people like me because they find us the biggest threat to their established reality. We come in, we know their book, we can quote their book, and when we present arguments against the book, the rationale quickly collapses on the other end. That's a threat. We are a threat to the established political structure. We don't buy into it. We don't want to partake in their cult rituals. And that's what politics is a cult. In fact, I will say this, all religions are a cult. I would say that the occultists are probably the ones that are at least part of cults. We reject them. We have no need for them. And that's what makes us dangerous. Whether you're talking to a demented man that should not be where he's at, whether you're talking to whoever, we bring forth arguments that collapses their narratives. That makes us a threat. And when you threaten particularly modern day religion, they will attack you like you cannot believe. There ain't no love, I can assure you that. Goes on to say, and in the second place, he knows that the presentment will fall with such astonishing force upon the Occidental religious thought as to seem incredible in spite of an array of positive testimony certifying to its correctness. He may well be pardoned a feeling of hesitation and dubiety in making the revelation, for it has involved him in a daring incursion into the interpretative terrain whither no scholar has penetrated before him. From the pentella of that little trodden domain of ancient religion mystery, he brings forth into modern light a discovery that will severely tax all the resources of common acceptance. Isn't that's a great, I mean, if this was a novel, I mean, I'm like, sign me up. I got to read this because holy crap. Traditional norms of thought do not readily relax their grip on the general mind. Isn't that the truth? It is scarcely to be hoped that an announcement so subversive of accepted ideas in religion and theology will be received without skepticism or resentment, since it invades a field in which conservatism is most godly rooted. Traditions long institutionalized do not easily bend to correction of principles basically vital to their very existence. Yet truth demands instantly from her devotees her inexhaustible tribute of sincerity and courage, and scholarship must flinch no duty in the line of truth seeking. It will be impossible in a brief preview to do more than just hint at the sweeping force of the disclosure now to be made in the domain of religious interpretation. It is permissible to assert that it will be revolutionized the entire modus of such interpretation in vogue since the 3rd century of the Christian era. Not alone one or two, but all of the doctrines of Christian theology will have to suffer drastic revision and reinstatement in the light of the import of this announcement. For in olden times, the proper signification of the terms death and the dead was the touchstone by which the meaning of all scriptural writing could be gauged. This term carried in their ancient usage a hidden or esoteric connotation, which was at once a clue to the primary meaning of the entire structure of theology and a key to the rational envisagement of our mortal life. The sagacious ancients were content to let a secondary implication of the terms, more readily apparent on the surface, prevail in the esoteric understandings, while imparting to the mysteries initiates an occult signification which bore the real purpose of Scripture, infinitely more informing and dynamic. We are readily informed that the sages of old employed mythical and Kabbalistic devices at once to reveal and conceal a profounder meaning in their sacred writings, using at times blinds to suggest to the untutored a shallow rendering, while conveying to those versed in symbolic mythology a far profounder message. The most startling of these ruses was their use of death. Teaching for the living was part out under the guise of instructions for the dead. Great moral and spiritual systems were cloaked under the mask of the Book of the Dead, as in Egypt and Tibet. This being so, the sequel will show why a revision of our understanding of what was implied by the archaic use of the terms will so radically transform the meaning of every single doctrine of the Christian faith, and I would say all other faiths. For the key to the correct interpretation of Scripture is just this ancient theological connotation of the word death. I find it interesting that maybe that's what we got it backwards. We're taught that this is life and how you're supposed to live life, right? But again, I contend that if life is what life is supposed to be, life would be eternal. Now, if you're saying that, well, there has no physicality, then I'm saying you're wrong on that as well, because physicality has a part. I have a sense that physicality has its place in other realms and dimensions, not just this one. But what if we got this backwards and what we're being taught is death? We're experiencing death. Everything we see here is death related. And within the experience of death, we learn the most precious secret of all. We learn the secret of life. We learn from this death experience how much more we it's not only desire, but it's It's an absolute necessity that we learn about death, because when we go through this death, when we enter out back into life again, we have a deeper appreciation for life itself. And when I come across books and teachings like this, I'm realizing that I'm not the first to come up with this. Apparently, great minds of the past knew this as well, that we are experiencing death. We learn about death. Life has no negativity to it. It has no pain to it. There's no need for it. And it may be through these lessons of death that we have to come back through again and again to fully grasp this fact. Maybe it's this one occult gnosis of knowledge, the hidden understanding and meaning that we are not alive here. We are, if anything, the living dead. And we're learning about death. And as we enter into life, we carry that deep appreciation of the lessons that we learned here, and we carry that forward. Maybe experiencing death is a high-ranking desire. Maybe it's maybe not all spirits experience death. And those that have come through, even if you say of all mankind, let's just say since mankind has been here, at least Homo sapiens, let's say that. Because I think that if you got the Neanderthals, the Cro-Magnons, all the way back, they must have had a spirit the same way. But let's just say that out of the possible 10 to 12 billion humans that have been on here, when you take that number in relationship and correlate it to what the number of spirits are, it is minute. Maybe the privilege of being here is that is what we're training our soul to do. Maybe that is another uniqueness thing of nature that we haven't fully comprehended. And somehow I believe it's all tied in, because all religions teach the fear of death. And I contend it should be the opposite. If we were to learn and teach our children that you're truly dead, and it is such a radical reversal of the construct, it would absolutely revolutionize the matrix itself, the simulation. If we as a species understand this on a certain esoteric level, that we're really dead, we'll take that with us. What we may surmise must have been the consequences to theology and to the world history of the loss of this arcane clue as far back as the 3rd century. In imagination, we can roughly begin to depict the prodigious handicap under which the theologians have labored for 16 centuries. Listen, if you're already dead, you don't need a Jesus. You don't need a Satan. You're already dead. What can the afterlife, what can it do to you? The afterlife is just that. It's life. It's not after. It should be called the after death. Completely reversal of everything. Now, to the world, this sounds crazy. It sounds insane. That's all right. They've said that about our kind all along. It blows away the need for a God. I mean, that's the whole purpose. You have a God, right? Well, you want to make sure you repent. You want to get down there and pray and kiss its ass and put your head up its ass, because, you know, the difference between an ass kisser and a brown noser is depth perception. And this God apparently likes you to really have your head up his ass. But anyway, I digress. So what's it going to do to you? What? Punish you for what? You've already been through death. How much more of a punishment could you want? Just saying. In the depth of the darkness that has involved the whole region of religious intellectualism can be sensed without difficulty. It will hardly be a matter of surprise if we discover that every single dogma of Christian systemism has been sadly distorted out of its original sense. The discerning student is now able to trace the dire disfigurement of every Christian doctrine. For as the lineaments of ancient beauty become outlined again beneath the distortions of medieval and modern crudity, he is then, for the first time, made aware of the unconscionable grossness of rendering to which pure spiritual formulae of the arcane science have been subjected. He sees that Christian doctrinal material was interpreted in blind ignorance of a former recondite wisdom, and that mass psychology has been made for ages the hapless slave to the crudest of misconceptions. For it seems not a scholar, not a theologian, medieval or modern, has been aware of the masked meaning of the word death, or suspected that a cloaked or a cryptic signification is in the word death, the discernment of which would have necessitated a reconditioned statement of every teaching or egregious. Now, a clear inspection of Greek and Egyptian systems bring the lost clue to light. With what consequences to modern thought as a whole the mind is staggered to envision. In the flash of vivid light engendered by the revelation, one can again survey the beautiful field of ancient spiritual truth, long buried under mist of ignorance. With one glance, it can be seen that the entire structure of theological science can have the same impertinent interpretation only by the application to its magical key that has been so long lost. Equally clear comes the perception that it has been the want of this key that has reduced religion to a meaningless babble of piety, sentimentalism, degrading the once kingly science of theology at the same time to the status of an outcast from the seats of modern intelligence. With startling force, too, it can be felt that the rediscovery may be timely enough to redeem the precarious fortunes of religion and theology from a danger to total eradication in a world that is fast growing less hospitable to them. Religion has been fighting a losing battle in modern life, and one of the basic reasons now come glaringly to light. Indeed, it becomes readily apparent that unless religion sets itself industriously to repair the breach made in its structure by the loss of the keystone elements, it may not be able to withstand the assault of radical bitterness. And I'll end it there. I had other papers I wanted to get into. I was going to show you, again, the term occult remains suspect in many circles. The word derives from Latin and simply means to shut off from view or exposure, hidden. However, it eventually came to refer to realities specifically hidden from common sight. The occult realm is invisible to the physical eye, but can be seen by an inner spiritual vision and/or grasped by psychic intuition. The occult is the opposite of apocalypse, which means to uncover. The last book of the Christian Bible is alternatively called the Apocalypse or the Revelation. To many religious people, the term occult denotes that which is opposite of what God has revealed, hence the realm of Satan and his legions of demons. Some substance for this observation has been provided by religious leaders who combine an exploration of the occult with open opposition to the more traditional religions and religious institutions. I'll be getting next as well. Next week, the Bible hell. This one is a great one again. Then we're going to be getting into the fallen star. And finally, We're going to get into this is a great one. There is no death. Yeah. Anyway, look at where the time has gone. I love this time together. So tell me what you think. I mean, again, just building off the thesis, as I'm finding as I study more, that my thesis is not a new or original. Again, but it's such a radical concept that we're actually dead. We're experiencing death. We each experience it in our own unique ways, but we also experience it collectively. If we're truly spirit beings and if we have a soul, then it means that we are alive in a different realm. It means that we live within our consciousness, and consciousness must experience the death in order to truly appreciate the glory of what life is. Thank you, Monk Experience. Hey, Steve, how are you? My brother, good to see you. Um, I love that, Grace. She says, this is discussions in what polishes my tinfoil hat. I love you. Love you all. I mean, so have yourself, I won't be here tomorrow, going to be out doing things. I will be back here on Friday because I really want to get more into this. I mean, this is a lesson that I think will probably expend for weeks. But again, it kind of blows this whole thing inside of my mind. I love it. That, I mean, folks, it took me a long time to come to this realization that we're experiencing death. This is not the realm of the living. It can't be. It's an impossibility. And it gives me a deeper appreciation of the reality of what death is. Because we're alive, we're energy. And I think we tell others when we get to the other side what this experience is like. And it's so enchanting that the other spirits that hear it, they want to come and experience this thing called death. It can't be life. I'll leave it at that. S. Lee, how are you? Zombies is the letter Z, the 26th and last letter. Yeah, World War Z. I love it. Scotty boy, how are you, brother? Much love to you, man. Good to see you. David and Gogo and all the rest of you. Thor's friend, what if the dream world is the real one? Bingo. We have forgotten what life is. And think about it. And I'll end it here. But what a mind fuck that when you're dying, they've made you afraid of going back into the living. Seriously, that's the ultimate mind fuck of all times. Where it should be a moment of celebration. We should have our loved ones around us celebrating us, ushering us in back into life, and we will be there waiting for them as they make that transition. I mean, woo! Hey, Pen Gritty, what's up? I love that. I was just reading what the say, the self. All right, folks. Hey, Lost in Space, what's up? Good to see you. Fear, guy. That's exactly it. Mary Wins, love you, darling. Love one. Yeah. All right. Have yourselves a great time tomorrow. If you're here, the rest of y'all and the rest of the world, well, we're going to be celebrating this thing called Independence Day, although it never happened on the 4th. But anyway, that's all. Hey, Emperor Rex, what's up? Baby next door expressing death has been screaming for the last. Think about it. Yeah. I mean, it takes us years when we get into these bodies, and at the whole time we're growing, we're dying. I don't know. Love y'all. Have yourself a fabulous time. We'll meet again, and let's keep on smiling. Hey, F Kitty. Much love, everyone. Until we see each other then. All right.